course and one specializing course during the 3 years. Most schools have them both. And then in vocational education, it's integrated as 60 hours in the curriculum, and it's focusing about the labor market and transition to labor market. And the goals of the system is to provide a continuum which lasts from basic education to further education and transition to labor market. It's also a task for all teachers and a trained counselor. The parents must have opportunities to discuss about the students' future, and they could have joint meetings with the counselors and students and teachers. And in addition to these preventive activities, the guidance and school have a role to support those pupils who have difficulties or who are in danger of dropping out, either with the cooperation within schools, but with cooperation to social and health professionals and public employment services, and this regional cooperation is a compulsory task for the schools. And because it's compulsory, all schools must have a strategic plan where they describe the principles and division of labor among different players who are in charge of this. They have to identify how cooperation with the local labor market and business is integrated in the system, and how to organize the different study visits or classroom activities. But the instructions of different subjects, they have to include modules that connect the knowledge and skills which are provided in the subject to the demands and possibilities of working life. So each teacher must also identify how does my own subject contribute to the overall goals of guidance. So guidance has two roles. It's a substance as such, but it's a strategic umbrella of the curriculum design in schools. And I think this was a change which took place in 2004 and changed the locus of guidance and the role of guidance within educational settings. And the goals, they are divided in three major areas. It's personal growth, development of study skills, and identify learning difficulties, but also the career component to guide and develop the skills which are needed in the future educational system and labor market. And this picture illustrates the overall goals. It's both the individual component, life management skills, how to manage your own daily life, and how to be an active member in the citizens. And those that promote those skills which are needed in the working life. And these are major elements which are included both in secondary level and the comprehensive level. And the methods can be individual counseling, small group, ICT, distant counseling, practice in working life. But as I mentioned, it's strongly embedded within the curriculum. And we do have some web-based services which support the implementation, and they are educational and occupational information in databases, but also a national internet-based joint application system where you can look for options for further education. In the universities, the situation is a little different. Both in the universities of applied sciences and traditional universities, students are entitled to get support for individual learning program. So it's described in that way. So they don't describe the guidance methodology, but it's up to the universities how they do it. And currently, government is allocating a lot of funding, European Social Fund, in all these settings to develop these activities. And as I mentioned, the only difference between the traditional universities is that some faculties have spread out some academic advisors in addition to their career centers. For adults, the situation is more fragmented, but the development is supported by legislation, and this identifies that students have, again, entitlement for support for individual study plans and recognition of prior learning. And this is a compulsory component again. And currently, government is allocating a lot of money to reorganize the guidance services for adults, both for employed and unemployed adults. And also a new situation for Finland during the last 20s is the a bigger number of immigrants, and the integration law now identifies entitlements for immigrants as well to get support for their career development. So in a way, it's, I think this is a sort of quality benchmark that it's, has this type of legal basis. And finally, guidance in employment and economic offices are targeted for services, first who are job-seeking clients and labor-seeking employers, but we also have vocational development services which provide information on vocational guidance and career planning, educational information services, and vocational rehabilitations. And, but the job seekers are the main target group. And to conclude, as the result of the recent national and international evaluations, guidance has been included within the key documents, both in educational and labour market policies. We have national cross-sectoral initiatives which are based on the recommendations, and we have established cross-sectoral working groups which feed the national policy, and at the moment we are discussing how to have a sustainable national lifelong guidance forum like you do have in Germany at the moment. But the biggest challenge for us is the evidence base that we hear example from England and how to develop a framework, and at the moment both the Ministry of Economy and the Employment and the Economy and the Ministry of Education and Culture, they both are investing on a project that will provide a common conceptual framework for guidance, and then the national basis for national feedback mechanism that helps them to get information what is happening, but it's also a tool for the local guidance providers. So we haven't solved the problem yet, but we have some indications, and I think one signal for that was the government designation to our unit that within our institute we have also a research center that is focusing on providing more evidence for both government, and this is now a sustainable tasks, and we call this National Center for Lifelong Guidance Expertise, and currently what we are doing, we are mapping what is happening and how to promote the best synergy between the providers, because as I mentioned, nobody can do this alone. It's a joint task. And I'm aware of the time. I'm thanking now for this opportunity to share this experience, and in the panel we can add some comments that I was skipping now in some of the slides. So vielen Dank.